Welcome into Player Profiler News Primetime. I'm your host, Mike Lindberg, joined by my co-host, Jeremiah Retzlaff. Let's kick this show off with our top stories of the week. Jeremiah, man. Well, first up today, we got RAAndre Stevenson's massive contract extension with the Patriots. 4 years, $36 million, $17 million guaranteed. What are your thoughts on Stevenson and the Patriots backfield moving forward? I know they picked up Antonio Gibson, so a lot of variables there, but the Patriots seem to really like RAAndre with his big money. So what are your thoughts on this deal?
So love it for RAAndre Stevenson, a fourth-round pick in the 2021 NFL Draft. Nice to see a day 3 running back get a good deal money-wise. We saw a dip in receptions in 2023. From 2022, he had 17 games with a very nice 69 catches. Now in 2023, he had only 38. But the context there, RAAndre Stevenson only played 12 games. What we want and what the Patriots want, 2022, RAAndre Stevenson. RAAndre was third in running back targets in 2022 with 89. RAAndre was sixth in weighted opportunities, fourth in target share with 17.3%, sixth in routes run and route participation, number 3 in both juke rate and evaded tackles. RAAndre's 14.7 fantasy points per game were 10th at the position. You can get RAAndre late in round 7 on Underdog. We have him 29th in our dynasty rankings, just behind Najee Harris and Javonte Williams, with rookies Marshawn Lloyd and Jalen Wright just behind him. So you're in that clump where you can get RAAndre if you like him. Antonio Gibson being brought in does not knock me off RAAndre at his price. Just know that what we've wanted from Antonio Gibson is what RAAndre Stevenson has and will likely provide in the future. Give me RAAndre Stevenson from this backfield. Antonio Gibson goes in round 14 on Underdog. You can watch the 73-yard touchdown reception that Gibson had versus the Buffalo Bills on repeat all that you want. But the running back you want in New England is RAAndre Stevenson. Now, Mike, can you scoop us on Anthony Richardson and his injury recovery?
Yeah, his injury recovery, despite facing some shoulder soreness during the offseason, Richardson reassured fans that it's nothing alarming. In his own words, it's nothing to worry about. I've dealt with this before. The Colts have taken a cautious approach, obviously, with their young quarterback, opting to prioritize long-term health over immediate returns on the field. Shane Steichen, the coach, reaffirmed Richardson's importance to the team, emphasizing precautionary measures in managing his recovery. Richardson's rookie performance highlighted his fantasy upside. He averaged an impressive 25.7 fantasy points per game in his limited starts, surpassing top-tier quarterbacks like Josh Allen in points per dropback. His ability to impact games extends beyond the passing. It's evident by his significant rushing contributions and red zone efficiency. So, looking ahead to this season, Anthony Richardson is poised to shake up fantasy football as a top contender to be the QB1 spot overall and could end up being that coveted number 1 dynasty overall pick in startups next year. Despite limited showing in 2023, he flashed his immense potential. Like I mentioned, 25.7 fantasy points per game. His red zone looks are always going to be enticing. Although he faces scrutiny over his passing accuracy, 59% completion percentage in 2023, there's improvements in that offense heading into this year. Shane Steichen supported him. They have playmakers like Michael Pittman. Josh Downs is a rookie standout, and Adonai Mitchell coming in is a solid group. And you can't forget, the tight end group there as well. There is some unproven luck there as well. So in summary, I love his blend of rushing prowess. So bold prediction here, Anthony Richardson is geared to dominate, and I'm going to have him as the QB1 finisher in 2024, and he'll be the number 1 dynasty pick headed into 2025. That is a bold prediction. You had a bold one last week there, Jeremiah, with Will Levis finishing it as a top 10. My bold one is Anthony Richardson this year. So we're moving on to Demario Douglas. and he's been standing out at the Patriots OTAs. He's had a dynamic playmaking ability. What's your take on his emergence in that Patriots offense?
For Demario Douglas, 5'8", 179 pounds, 6th round draft pick from Liberty, can absolutely ball. Douglas will garner target share in the slot and is super valuable in PPR leagues. Best ball formats where you have a 1 PPR in your redraft leagues will make Douglas a prime third wide receiver and bye-week fill-in. Douglas on Underdog goes in round 15. The Patriots aren't necessarily going to give the keys to the rookie players. The Patriots want rookies to take it from the veteran players. I don't see Demario Douglas giving up the slot role. I particularly love Demario Douglas in the event that Jacoby Brissett starts the season, and that's what I forecast going into 2024.
Really? Okay. I like that as well. I mean, the slot role's there for him. There is opportunity for these rookies to come in and actually make an impact there as well. So like you said, these veteran guys are going to get the shake first. And Pop Douglas, he popped last year in a lot of his efforts. So I'm with you there. I like the upside. You seem to be on the Patriots today. You had the RAAndre Stevenson take and now the Pop Douglas, they're making the news because they're an unproven team that have a lot of rookies headed into this season. And it's going to be interesting to see how that division shakes out, especially with the Bills and, they're with what's happening there as well. So let's move on to the Carolina Panthers and Bryce Young gearing up for a breakout season. I don't know. Is it smoke? Is it fire? Well, the Panthers fans have been on a roller coaster, no doubt, and the trade-offs and challenges this offseason have been tough to swallow, especially with high expectations for Bryce Young. Yes, 2024, the first round pick turned into Caleb Williams, but dwelling on the past won't move us forward. Let's focus on what lies ahead and the genuine excitement that lies with Dave Canales bringing in as that coach transition. He'll bring a great perspective into this locker room. He has shown that with Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield. His ability to develop these quarterbacks is precisely what Bryce Young needs to regain his confidence. Speaking of offense, last season's protection issues were glaring. Young was sacked a league high 62 times, but I don't think they wasted too much time this year. They bolstered their offensive line. They brought in veterans like Hunt and Lewis in free agency. These additions alongside Canales' strategy, I think, will be a very good approach to fortifying this offense. And I like what they've done. Deontay Johnson brings proven skills from Pittsburgh, and Leggett he adds depth as a playmaking ability. I think his outlook for Bryce Young in 2024 is very, very optimistic, in my opinion. He's a sleeper pick in leagues that use two quarterbacks in super flex formats. With his talent, improved team, and coaching, he's poised to emerge as a top fantasy quarterback in the near future. Those patients enough to invest in Young could see substantial rewards in dynasty leagues as he begins to what looks to be a promising journey in the Panthers 2024 and beyond. I'm hoping to see that. I mean, he's a former first round pick, and I think he's going to go hot in some of these FFPC drafts this summer. What do you think, Jeremiah? Do you think the Podfather's got something to say about that?
I think he does. I think I hear him right now.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
Yeah, buddy. Well, thanks, Podfather. There was a beautiful face on that clip. Did you notice our boss there, Bradley Stalder's face was on that clip? Well, shout out to Bradley. Jeremiah, let's get back into the action here. Brandon Cooks is said to have an obvious connection and rapport with Dak Prescott. Is this smoke or more actionable?
Well, Brandon Cooks, he turns 31 in September. The 2014 first-round pick has put together an impressive career as he is on his 5th NFL team. He needs just a little under 800 more receiving yards to reach 10,000 receiving yards for his career. Cooks has the body type at 5'10", 180 pounds to age gracefully from the physical demands of the NFL. Brandon Cooks is not a bruising type player. Now, people will say the head injuries were a major concern. But you take a little time that has gone by, and we aren't so worried about him right now getting hurt. Just ask people who are clicking Tua Tagovailoa in drafts right now. The Dallas Cowboys will throw a ton in 2024. The race to who is the number 2 in the offense will provide immense upside. Jake Ferguson goes 86 overall on Underdog in the early 8th round. Brandon Cooks is going 121 overall in the early 11th. Best ball drafters who miss CeeDee Lamb are tempted to skip Dak Prescott. That's a mistake. Brandon Cooks is the perfect bailout, almost 30 picks later, ADP-wise, on Underdog. In your drafts, you need to be clicking Dak Prescott with or without CeeDee Lamb and take this positive Brandon Cooks news and stack Brandon Cooks with Dak Prescott. So that is some fire right there. Now, Mike, question for you. Greg Dortch, slot receiver role with the Cardinals. Kyler Murray, every chance he gets, he's talking him up. The guy who's going to be in charge of getting people the ball. What do you make of Greg Dortch? Is this smoke or not?
Well, I'm not sure who else they have to put in that slot role, to be honest. All their guys are above 6'2", that would play in that role. Michael Wilson's too big. They don't want to play Marvin Harrison in that position either. They want to play him where he's going to dominate on the outside. Yes, they might rotate him into that position, but Greg Dortch is the only option they have there. So there's no reason why they can't steam him up. They have to give the guy confidence, and nothing against Greg Dortch. His role at the Arizona Cardinals has evolved significantly during the 2023 season, especially in the latter half when he saw his snap share rise to nearly 75%. The opportunity arose due to injuries to key people like Michael Wilson and Marquise Brown. It allowed Dortch to showcase his potential alongside Kyler Murray, who returned to form after recovering from that injury. In the absence of Rondale Moore, who has since moved on to Atlanta, Dortch proved capable of delivering fantasy value, surpassing 11 PPR points per game in 4 games between weeks 11 to 17. Despite a quieter 2023 statistically, with 24 receptions, 280 yards, Dortch's prospects are brightening headed into 2024. Headed into this new season, Dortch is poised to take on that starting slot role following Moore's departure, while Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride are expected to command attention as well. Dortch's established chemistry with Murray and his potential as that slot receiver make him a compelling option, especially in PPR formats, currently ranked outside the wide receiver 100, and it's a moderate PPR ADP. Dortch represents a low-cost, high-upside option in deeper fantasy drafts. In leagues that reward kick returns, Scott Fishbowl, hint, 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 Dortch's role as a return specialist adds to his fantasy value, having contributed significantly in aspects in 46 returns last season. So keep an eye on him, especially if you're drafting late in that Scott Fishbowl. Now it's time to get into another segment of our show, and this is an exciting one. We broke it down a little bit last week there, Jeremiah, and then we each got a kind of a segment that we're going to break down into like our specialty. Not saying that we're going to be talking about coaches talk or chef talk. We're talking about our specialty. So this is our segments of our show, and Jeremiah is going to start today with the Coach's Corner.
Absolute fire on the intro. Excellent work, Mike. I am going to pull up the Atlanta Falcons with their ADP, and I'm going to talk up some Atlanta Falcons. Let's spit some game here. Bijan goes in round 1. In 2023, as a rookie, Bijan was 4th in receiving yards with 487 at the position. sixth in receptions with 58, and third in targets with 86. It may not feel that way with so much opportunity share that Bijan had with Tyler Algier. Bijan had 31 red zone touches with 214 carries. Contrast that to Tyler Algier, who had 6 more red zone touches with 37 and 186 carries. This gap needs to widen for Bijan Robinson to make the elevated jump to the 101. What I anticipate happening is early downs, it'll be the traditional role for Bijan Robinson, and then Bijan will be utilized in the passing game. I think you could end up having Bijan and Tyler Algier on the field at the same time. I just don't think Bijan leaves the field at all, whereas Tyler Algier may be the guy cycling off a little bit more. Now let's go to Drake London. Going in round 2, I can remember when I could get him in the 40s and sometimes early 50s way back in January. This is his third year heading into the age 23 season. 69 receptions, nice, on 109 targets in 2023. The quality of target will improve from Desmond Ridder up to Kirk Cousins and even Michael Penix. It won't matter. It will be better than Desmond Ridder. Drake London, his 2023 catchable target rate ranked 36. Add in that there will be an increase in targets. There was no significant number 2 added, and that's where we see Drake London creeping up into that early second round on Underdog. Absolutely worth the click, even still. Kyle Pitts is at the 5-6 turn. Kyle Pitts has talked about how he feels healthier into this season, another year removed from his injury. In 2023, Kyle Pitts was number 1 in air yards share, ADOT, and deep targets, as well as number 1 in unrealized air yards at the tight end position. In Pitt's rookie season, he had over 1,000 yards receiving. The injury hit in 2022. In 2023, you had Arthur Smith problems. It is easy for me to wipe a slate clean, given the health wasn't there, the quarterback situation is improving, and you're getting a coaching improvement, and we're picking up where we left off after Pitt's rookie season. Granted, if you've been hurt, if you've been burned, it can be easy for you to feel that. But for me personally, I am going to have post Kyle Pitts rookie season amnesia. I've wiped the slate clean, and it feels great when I click on some Kyle Pitts. Now, the giant story, the elephant in the room, Kirk Cousins, round 13 on Underdog. For confidence level of Cousins playing immediately to old form, I am 80% confident with some 20% wariness. The addition of Michael Penix makes me think there is some bit of actionable intelligence within the organization that both made the Falcons bearish on Cousins while being bullish on Penix. You don't just choose a guy 8th overall if you're not bullish on him specifically, that being Michael Penix. So pivot over to Darnell Mooney in round 13. He got 3 years, $39 million. So he is being slotted into the wide receiver 2 role by drafters. So Darnell Mooney is looking to get to his 2021 form where he had 81 receptions on 1,055 receiving yards. Me personally, I'm not so sure I can wipe the slate clean the same way and same enthusiasm as I do for Kyle Pitts. I think you can understand, sharp drafters can understand as well, why I'm not as high on Darnell Mooney. We talked about Tyler Algier. Just a note on Tyler Algier, going back to some of that Bijan discussion. Tyler Algier is there at the 13-14 turn. As bullish as we are on Bijan Robinson, and I believe Bijan will be the 101 next year. And if he's not the 101, Bijan Robinson will be the number 1 running back selected. Tyler Algier is a top handcuff in the league with best ball upside to fill your RB2 spot or your flex spot a multitude of weeks across 17 games. Don't just turn the lights out on Tyler Algier based on the bullishness we have for Bijan Robinson. If you miss Bijan round 1, Tyler Algier is an excellent click in the 13th, 14th round, and the risk element really isn't there. Rondale Moore, round 18. I want, and listen carefully, I want Rondale Moore to have a Deebo Samuel light role. Give Rondale Moore the creative usage that Deebo Samuel gets near the line of scrimmage with utilization in the run game. This is more of a real NFL move, though, to me. I'd like to see, and don't expect much, fantasy impact. So I would like to see this impact for Rondale Moore. I want Rondale Moore to get that usage, but I don't see it being the fantasy output. Let's go back to Michael Penix. If the Falcons start 1-4, the seat will get really hot for Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has an ironclad contract. However, he doesn't have an ironclad path to necessarily play the entire duration of his contract. Teams don't take franchise quarterback selections at the 8th overall pick not to play them. So 3 angles for Michael Penix Jr. to see the field this year will be an injury to Kirk Cousins, a slow start where the season looks like it could be lost, and full elimination late in the season. We will see Michael Penix Jr. play. That would impact fantasy playoffs in Superflex leagues and large-scale best ball tournaments. Don't just set and forget that Michael Penix Jr. will not play in 2025. And then lastly, an uncut gem, and then I'll get your take on this, Mike. Casey Washington going in round 18. He's a wide receiver from Illinois. In round 6, he was drafted. He looks like an uncut gem late in drafts. He's a differentiated player that you can layer into your best ball stacks. A huge challenge this part of the year, especially in the slow days of June, is to have different players in your player pool. Casey Washington has moved from 3rd and 4th string to working with 1st and 2nd string players during OTAs. And Casey Washington has shown early chemistry with Michael Penix Jr. and drawn praise from Drake London. So entry level, entry point, the best time for Casey Washington to get in the good graces in Atlanta is here at the entry level with a guy like Michael Penix Jr., who is the future. What do you think of this, Mike?
Well, I'm going to get myself back on stage for one. Let's get our promos back up there, switch it up here. But yeah, you know what? I like the Penix call. I think that, they drafted him for a reason. Obviously, there's a huge insurance policy there. I heard today there was rumblings there that Kirk Cousins wasn't even taking a full trial. They just saw him throw in a gym. So that's kind of a scary situation when you're dealing with that type of money. So yeah, that's a big insurance policy. And Michael Penix is not a youngster. He has that already. I think he's 24 years old. That's got a little bit of experience there already, playing a long career in college. So he's got that upside. They drafted him in the 1st round. So that has got a lot of value there as well. So like you said, in these later round best ball drafts, I think that's good. Casey Washington as a flyer, obviously, you never know what could happen with these guys with chemistry. And I like that call as well, man. Good breakdown on the Falcons. Like they're a team in flux. People have different opinions on them. They think they're going to head out of the gate storming. I mean, it all really depends on the health of Kirk Cousins and how he has recovered from that injury. And is he going to be viable like that? There's stats going all over the place that, he throws a very, very catchable ball and he makes everybody around him that much better in the catchable ball rate. So we will see what happens there in Atlanta. And if he can be healthy, things could be very evolving there.
Very nice. Now we are going to pivot over to the chef's table.
So with today's Chef's Table special, we are going to be talking about the AFC West and which team that could emerge past the Kansas City Chiefs, if any could. And we're going to talk about the Chiefs first, and they are poised to dominate again in 2024. And here's why they are the team to beat. Well, obviously, back-to-back Super Bowl champions, continuity and talent. The Chiefs are keeping their core intact with Andy Reid committed to coaching, Travis Kelce continuing to perform at a high level, and Patrick Mahomes leading the charge. They have stability and star power. Adding Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie on defense strengthens their already potent lineup. Now they got those guys locked up. This consistency and talent makes the Chiefs a formidable contender year after year. Their adaptability and their reinvention, the Chiefs have shown exceptional adaptability. They transformed an offense that struggled last year into a team that actually won the Super Bowl based off of defense. And we know that in years past, their offense has been the prolific one. So, they are chameleons, if you will. Patrick Mahomes, simply put, is the best in the league. He's the only one in the league at this stage that is being considered one of the best of all time. His ability to make plays, read defenses, and lead his team under pressure is unparalleled. With Mahomes at the helm, the Chiefs have that quarterback who can single-handedly elevate the team. We know the Chiefs are going to be a prominent Super Bowl contender, but who is that team that I think that could potentially take on the Chiefs and battle them down the stretch, if any? And I know this division is in flux. They have 3 teams that are essentially rebuilding. But the team that is a dark horse, in my opinion, and that has the clear advantage, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders over their West rivals. The Broncos and Chargers headed into 2024 have their challenges. The Broncos and Chargers struggle with salary cap issues. Denver faces $85 million in cap hits with likely the release of, Russell Wilson this year. It helped that, obviously, but they need to rebuild that sustainability. With releasing players like Bowles, they have lack of clarity, especially at quarterback, which could affect their competition and tough conference. Chargers, similar boat. They have $45 million cap deficit. They have expensive veterans, and they did cut some of that cap space. And now the Raiders have managed their cap space wisely, and they have some question marks headed into this season, but they have a stable coaching staff and potential moves in free agency and the draft. The Raiders have positioned themselves to exploit their weaknesses in their rivals. While challenging the Chiefs remains a tough task, the Raiders' focused approach and strategic roster adjustments could lead to a competitive 2024. To sum it up, the Broncos and Chargers face financial challenges. The Raiders are smart management, and their rosters and key acquisitions could tip the AFC West in their scales. Under their new coach, AP, that leadership is strong, and I think they're ready to close the gap and seriously contend in their division. So how are the Raiders poised for that comeback in 2024? Well, they wrapped up their mini camp with a clear direction from Coach AP. It's all moving around. My buddy Biggs, Brendan Booth from the news desk, he reported today that, Gardner Minshew is on the out, and OC Aiden O'Connell is going to be competing and has got that starting job in his grasp right now. So they have that battle almost set. They have a stable defense. Defensive coordinator Patrick Graham enters his 3rd season, bringing stability to a unit that ranked 9th in scoring last year. The O-line made adjustments. They made moves. They shifted Dylan Parham and integrating Jackson Powers Johnson. They have emerging defensive talent. They have really good, strong defense. It's going to be a hard defense to crack. We know that. And they play the Chiefs very difficult, and they did it on Christmas Day last year, which actually helped the Chiefs catapult themselves back into that contention, and actually, I think, really kicked them in the butt last year and changed their season. So they have some X factors, and the Raiders offseason and training camp progresses indicate they're ready for a strong showing in 2024 with a strong focus on competition, strategic adjustments and emerging talent. They're laying the foundation for a competitive season and aim for a playoff contention. The Raiders closed 2023 under new head coach AP with notable uptick in performance, winning 5 of their last 9 games. This momentum sets a positive tone headed into 2024 with so much variables with the Broncos and the Chargers. There's only one team I can see making that gap filled, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders. So what does that mean for fantasy football? Well, I think Aiden O'Connell will win the battle for that starting role, and he can be a flyer in later rounds in low-end QB2 option. So monitor that battle. If Aiden O'Connell does end up struggling in camp, they may go with that proven veteran, but we all know that Gardner Minshew is just a kind of a backup quarterback. The running back room, led by Zamir White, steps into that lead role after Josh Jacobs' departure. He averaged a solid fantasy points in 4 starts last season, making him a potential RB2. Some people have him as a sleeper pick to become a RB1 in 2024. And if that workload can be similar to what Josh Jacobs had in the past, I don't see why not. I don't see why that can't happen. I don't see Alexander Mattison becoming more of a threat to his workload. He provides depth and more just of a handcuff. Moving on to the wide receivers, Davante Adams remains a top option despite uncertainties at that quarterback position. Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker are viable bench options, with Myers expected to see reduced targets due to the addition of rookie tight end Brock Bowers. Davante Adams remains a strong wide receiver one despite the quarterback uncertainties. Now the interesting situation there, and that's the tight end room. That they brought in Brock Bowers. He was drafted in the first round. His upside as a rookie and starter potential is there. We can't diminish Michael Mayer's role, though, just because Bowers arrived, making him a non-factor potentially in fantasy drafts, but it's there. We can't ignore it. Michael Mayer could be there to ruin some of Brock Bowers' upside. It is set in stone, but we shall see. That's kind of the breakdown there of how I think maybe the Las Vegas Raiders can come in and take the Kansas City Chiefs. I gave you a little bit of a rundown on how I see their fantasy outlook happening in 2024 as well. I don't think anybody's taken down the Chiefs in that division. Granted, an injury to Patrick Mahomes, heaven forbid that happening. But I think it's going to be a tough one with all three of those teams kind of in rebuild mode.
I love it, and we have to think about this where we went through the New England Patriots dynasty, and it was just who's going to make something of this division in the AFC East. So now we just have to think, who is going to make something of it in the AFC West? And I like your take. It's an alternative take. It's an alternative thought. We don't necessarily entertain these questions all the time, but things can happen. You mentioned the possibility of a Patrick Mahomes injury. No one wants to think about a Patrick Mahomes injury. By the way, Carson Wentz, backup quarterback, stash him in your Superflex leagues. Nobody wants to think of that, but you laid out a very good, promising future and build that the Raiders have. Maybe they're trying to do a little bit what the Lions had with some positive momentum from Antonio Pierce as a head coach. I love Brock Bowers from a fantasy standpoint. You can get him in the 90s and the early hundreds in your underdog drafts. You can have a whole team set up before you get him. Of course, Brock Bowers is one, maybe two in your dynasty leagues for the tight end position. And then I love Jacoby Myers as a value pick. Love Zamir White, clicking him. And the Raiders are one of those teams that, like you say, they could give the Chiefs some fits. You have to pay attention to that because everybody who's a Chiefs fan will recognize and realize who's that team. Familiarity breeds contempt. Who's that team that's a thorn in the side? And I know you made a good call there, Mike, with it being the Raiders.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, not many people have them pegged there, but I mean, they got a brand new head coach, the Chargers, coming in, and the Broncos were a mess last year. It's no lie, and they're rebuilding too. They got a brand new quarterback, a rookie quarterback coming in potentially. They may start a veteran, but that's not leaving me much optimism there. You're headed in with 2 Oregon Ducks as your main 2 guys. It's going to be a tough one for the Broncos sledding through 2024 with the defensive gaps they lost in the offseason as well. And the Chargers, I think this is a rebuilding year for them. It was shown to me by them drafting Alt in the first round. They could have gone with an offensive weapon, but that's not their priority right now. They want to get them into a Harbaugh style offense and defense, and that's the way to rebuild. So I just don't see them. I can see them being competitive in games, but I think the Raiders are just a little bit further ahead, and they've shown promise. And I think they're gonna be turning some heads with how good that defense really is in that weak division outside of the Chiefs. I could see the Raiders really making a stamp there and actually making a push at the playoffs. And I think my homeboy Biggs will be proud of me for saying that. And I think he's on my side there too.
Hey, shout out to him, right?
Yeah. So now let's get into another fun segment that we didn't have time to do last week, but that was our first show. So this one we made a point because we want to get into the combat zone, and this is going to be one where we take a take or two, and then we combat each other, and it's just all in good fun. Take what you will out of our takes, and maybe give us a comment or two, and see who you side with. So let's get in to the combat zone.
It's go time. It's go time. It's go time. We going up. We go.
Yeah. So Jeremiah's going to start us off. So our battle today is between the Pittsburgh Steelers running backs and who we prefer at cost. So I'm going to take the Jaylen Warren side. Jeremiah's going to lead us off with the Najee Harris side.
So Najee Harris at the 7-8 turn on Underdog, just a little bit ahead of Jaylen Warren. So the market, if you want to go off of that, is showing a little bit lean towards Najee Harris. Najee Harris in 2023 was number 6 in carries last year with 255. Najee Harris had 47 red zone touches. That was 8th in the league. Najee was 7th in rushing yards, 4th in breakaway runs with 14. Najee Harris was 10th in breakaway run rate. Now, Najee Harris gets the maligned Arthur Smith. While I'm bullish on Justin Fields versus Russell Wilson is going to start. I see Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith reverting to early down rushing mode and letting Russ play some hero ball on 3rd down. We complained about Pete Carroll for years, not letting Russ cook. This will be the path for the Steelers. Najee Harris, 5th year, was not his option was not exercised. The Steelers will run Najee into the ground. Touchdowns are still the name of the game. Where Najee loses in receptions, he will make up for in touchdown equity. I give the most distinct edge to Najee Harris over Jaylen Warren, particularly in half-point PPR leagues. Jaylen Warren is the hopium archetype on the other end. My contention. Jaylen Warren is the hopium archetype of running back who will never get the full workload. And if Jaylen Warren does, it will go the way of Tony Pollard. It's 2024, and it's an election year. So citizens of Pittsburgh, you can put up your Najee Smith signs in your yard because that is what we are going to see this fall. Put it on the board. Najee Harris. What do you got for us, Mike, for Jaylen Warren?
You know what? I don't disagree with your take too much there. I think they're both very much values in best ball drafts and redrafts right now. You can get them both at a value. But I actually prefer Jaylen Warren, and he makes a strong case to be the top fantasy pick over Najee Harris in 2024. It's backed by his impressive stats and game-changing dynamics in that Pittsburgh offense. His explosive metrics and efficiency in 2023, Jaylen Warren showcased top-tier efficiency metrics, ranked among the league leaders in explosive run rate, missed tackles forced per attempt, and yards after contact per attempt. These stats highlight the knack for big plays and maximizing yardage, transitioning into consistent fantasy points in both rushing and receiving roles. So his role and opportunity, despite sharing snaps with Najee Harris last year, Warren still managed to deliver RB2 performances in better than half of his games, with a strong finish to the year and a defined role in Pittsburgh's evolving offense. Warren is set to see more opportunities in 2024 as the Steelers improve their offensive line. Warren's dynamic style complements Harris's power run game, potentially leading to a more balanced workload and increased production for both of these backs. That's why I think they're both values, but I prefer Jaylen Warren, especially in PPR leagues. He offers great value, sitting at ADP 90. Typically a steal in the 8th round in fantasy drafts. Given his explosive metrics and anticipated expanding role, he stands out to me. I said that in PPR leagues especially. He's got a competitive advantage over Najee Harris. While he's been consistent, Warren's emergence is more explosive as an efficient runner. And expert consensus and upside potential, he's ready to go. In conclusion, though, Warren's explosive playmaking ability, dual threat skills, anticipated role expansion, and favorable draft value make him a superior fantasy option to me over Najee Harris for the 2024 season. As Pittsburgh's offense evolves under new coaching, improved offense line support, Warren is positioned well to capitalize on that. And I didn't even mention, the Steelers didn't take up Najee Harris's fifth-year option, which, you alluded to a little bit there about, them going to be running him down to the ground. But that could go the opposite way too, where they could, give him less of a role, especially if the Steelers are out of there near the end of the season, to see other guys get into those types of roles. So there's a little bit of uncertainty with his role on the team, outside of 2024, and bearing an injury, Jaylen Warren would just explode, and obviously they would go vice versa. But both are very strong takes, and I think they're both very valuable guys that you could see, especially coming into an Arthur Smith offense who has known to use both running backs pretty regularly, like we saw in Atlanta last year with Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. So that was a good segue after your Atlanta Falcons talk there, Jeremiah. What a good show. I think we've, created a good atmosphere here. We got, 30 plus listeners live right now on a Monday night. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in. Jeremiah, why don't you send the show off for the evening?
Well, I love our combat zone, and it's contentious in a good way because you have two players where it's both sides, and there are so many people who are passionately on both sides, and they're right there neck and neck. You can make that choice. So I'm Jeremiah Retzlaff at Coach Retzlaff 1. This is Mike Lindbergh. You can find him at FF Canuck 99. My wife bought a giant bag of Pirates Booty popcorn yesterday. And just like that bag, we are gone. We are out of here. We will see you next week.
See you next week, everybody. Thanks for a good show.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.